Commander Jake Harrison stood in front of the main of his small exploration ship, watching the 442 system come into view. The stars around them glowed in different colors, and the planet below showed bands of blue and orange. Jake had been in space for 15 years, and moments like this never got old. He was a tall man with dark hair and calm eyes that showed his experience in dangerous places. His crew was small, just 4 people including himself. This was the way human explorers worked now. They went into space with small teams that could think fast and move faster. Jake believed that big ships with many people made decisions slower and took more risks. His team was different. Lieutenant Maya sat at the navigation controls. She was quick-minded and careful about every choice she made. Her dark eyes moved across the screens in front of her, checking every number and every reading. Maya had saved the ship 3 times in the past 2 years with her quick thinking and her knowledge of alien systems. Engineer Chris Holland worked at the engineering station in the back. Chris was the kind of person who understood machines the way other people understood language. He could fix almost anything with the right tools and enough time. On this trip, they had tools, but they might not have time for many repairs. Medical Officer Green checked the medical supplies in her station. Was the youngest of the crew, but she had already seen more injuries and illnesses than most doctors saw in a lifetime. She was calm under pressure and knew how to keep people alive when things went wrong. She had learned from the best doctors on Earth. Reading something new on the sensors, Maya said, her voice steady and clear. She did not sound worried, but Jake knew that tone. It meant she had found something strange. Jake moved to stand behind her and looked at the screen. What is it? Energy signal, Maya said. Coming from the moon around 442b. It is not a natural signal. Something is making it. Jake felt the pull of curiosity and the sharp edge of danger. In space, strange signals meant choices. Sometimes they meant discovery. Sometimes they meant death. Usually they meant both. Wake everyone up, Jake said. We are going to look at it. The ship turned toward the moon. It was called 442b1, but Jake and his team just called it the moon. It was a gray place with mountains and deep valleys. It did not look like much, but Earth had not looked like much from space either, just another blue marble. Looks meant nothing. As they got closer to the moon, something appeared on the sensors. It was a ship, a big one. It is a mining vessel, Chris said from the back. He was looking at the metal readings. It has been here for some time, maybe weeks. The power systems are not working well. Just then, a signal came through the radio. It was a voice, and it sounded tired and scared. The words came in the standard trade language that all humans learned now. Help, the voice said. Anyone out there? This is Mining Ship 7. We need help. Our systems are down. We have people here who are hurt. Please respond. Please help us. Jake and his team looked at each other. This was the moment where everything changed. Jake knew it in his bones. Every good commander knows that feeling. This could be a trap, said from her station. She was looking at the energy readings. Something feels wrong. That ship should be dead. Its power is almost gone. But that energy signal we detected was very strong. She is right, Maya said. She was studying her screens carefully. The signal pattern is strange. It looks almost like it was made to bring us here. Jake stood quiet for a moment. The ship was quiet around them. In space, quiet was the only sound there was, and it could fill your head with worry and fear. Jake had learned to think in that quiet. He had learned to make choices when all the information was bad and time was running out. We have to go, Jake said finally. If they really need help, we cannot leave them to die. That is not who we are. If it is a trap, we could all be dead in the next hour, Chris said. He was not arguing. He was just saying the truth of the situation. Then we will be dead, Jake said. But we will have tried to save someone who was in trouble. That matters more than our lives do. The ship moved closer to the mining vessel. As they came near, Jake could see that the ship was very big. It was made of strange metal that looked like silver mixed with dark colors. It had marks on its side that might have been damage or might have been writing in some alien language. "Close to attack range," Maya said quietly. "Their weapons are still working. I can feel them powering up." Jake had made his choice. Now they would learn if it was the right one or the wrong one. The ship moved toward the mining vessel, toward the signal, toward whatever waited for them in the darkness of space. The moon hung below them like a gray stone in a black ocean. Stars filled the space all around them. Earth was very far away. No one was coming to help them. They were alone with the mining ship and the strange signal and the tired voice asking for help. Jake sat in his command chair and waited for what would happen next. He could feel the weight of every decision he had ever made. This one would be the most important. The mining ship hung in space before them, silent and waiting. The weapons hit the human ship before anyone could move. The impact threw everyone forward in their seats. Alarms filled the bridge with a terrible sound that cut through the air like a knife. Red lights turned everything the color of blood. Jake held onto his chair and felt his teeth come together hard. This was the moment. The trap had been real. "Shields at 50%, Maya shouted over the noise. "They are firing again." The ship shook hard. Papers flew through the air. A cup of coffee fell from Chris's station and broke on the floor. "Get us away from them," Jake said, his voice calm and hard like steel. "I cannot," Maya said. She was fighting the controls, pushing hard on every button. "They have control of our engines. We are locked." Another explosion. This one was bigger. The lights went out for a second, then came back in emergency mode. Everything was red now. Held the edge of her medical station. Her young face was afraid, but her hands were steady. She was thinking about what she would need to do. She was already making plans for the wounded who would come. "The main engines are gone," Chris yelled from the back. His voice was shaking. "They hit the power core. We have only secondary systems." Jake moved fast. He did not waste time on fear or anger. He did not ask why they had lied or how they had planned this trap so well. He just thought about what came next. "All personnel to the control room," Jake said into the ship's speakers. His voice was the only calm thing in a world of chaos and noise. "This is not a test. Move now." 3 more crew members came running through the doors. David Reeves was the weapons officer. Sarah was the second engineer, and Thomas was the navigator who worked the backup stations. They were all good people. They were all about to fight or die. "They want our ship," Jake said, thinking out loud. "They want to study our technology. They think we are weak because we are human. They are wrong about what weak means." "What do we do?" David asked. He was looking at Jake with eyes that wanted answers. Jake moved to the center of the bridge. He could feel the ship dying around him. The lights kept flickering. The metal was making sounds of breaking, but his mind was sharp now. Danger made Jake think clearly. Fear made some people frozen. Fear made Jake dangerous. "Maya," Jake said, "I need you to take the secondary power from the life support system. Can you do it?" "Yes," Maya said, understanding what he wanted, "but the air will get thin." "We will not be here long enough to notice," Jake said. "Chris, those coolant lines that run through the main corridor, can you pressurize them and flood the ship with cold?" Chris nodded. He was already moving, already thinking about the pipes and the pressure and the temperature. "I can make it happen, but it will take 3 minutes." "You have 2, Jake said. "They will be inside this ship in 2 minutes." Sarah and David looked at each other. They knew what was coming. They would try to board. They would try to take the ship and take the crew. "The electromagnetic system," said suddenly. "The one we use for medical imaging. If we overload it, how much damage would it do?" Everyone looked at her. She was young, but she was not thinking like young. She was thinking like a survivor. "It would create a pulse," Maya said slowly. She was understanding the idea. "A big one. It would not kill the aliens, but their weapons would not work. Their tools would not work." How much power does it need? Jake asked. All of it, Chris said. Everything we have left. The moment we do it, we lose power for 15 minutes. We will be in the dark. Jake looked at his crew. These were good people. These were people who had chosen to trust him and follow him into space. Now they were about to fight an enemy they did not know against weapons they could not beat. But they could use their minds. They could use creativity. They could use the fact that humans survived on a world that wanted to kill them every single day. Earth had taught them how to fight when they had nothing else. Do it, Jake said. The ship became a weapon. Chris moved through the backup corridors with tools in his hands. His fingers shook, but not from fear, from speed, from the need to make things happen fast. The coolant lines were thick and blue and full of cold liquid. He started to reroute them toward the main boarding corridor, the place where they would try to enter the ship. Maya worked at 3 different stations, pulling power from places the ship needed it, moving it to places that could hurt their enemy. Her dark eyes never left the screens. She was doing math in her head, calculating the power flow, making sure they did not blow up the whole ship in the process. David and Sarah prepared the corridor with weapons and barriers. They used everything they could find. Chairs became walls. Metal boxes became shields. They made a maze of human defenses that looked weak but was not. Prepared the medical bay. She pulled out bandages and medicine and the tools she would need to keep people alive. She knew that people would come to her hurt. She knew that some might not leave the medical bay alive. She prepared for all of it. Jake waited in the control room. He could feel the ship around him like he could feel his own body. He knew every part of it. He knew where it hurt. He knew what it could still do. Then the boarding lock opened. They were coming. They came in groups of 4, wearing armor that was thick and weapons that looked like they could cut through metal. Jake opened his eyes and nodded to David. The first corridor flooded with cold so intense it was like stepping into frozen air. The first group screamed. They had never felt cold like that. They had never known their bodies could hurt in that way. They turned and ran back to their ship. The second group came through a different way. Maya hit the button. The electromagnetic pulse was like a sun being born inside the ship. It was power and light and force. Every computer system that had brought went dead. Every weapon stopped working. The armor that kept them safe became nothing but thick clothing that was too hot. They were strong. They were fast. But they did not have what humans had. They did not have the ability to think around a problem. They did not have the history of fighting with nothing and winning anyway. Jake stood up and looked at his crew. Now we wait, he said, and we see if our enemy wants to learn what we really are. The ship was quiet again. Outside, the stars still burned. Inside, humans and aliens stood facing each other across a gap that was wider than space itself. Commander stood in the observation room of the mining ship and felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt doubt, was a leader of his people. He was strong and wise, or at least, he had believed he was wise. Now he was watching his soldiers run from a human ship that was broken and dying. His soldiers ran from cold and darkness and pulses of energy. Was tall for almost 8 feet in height. His skin was dark orange and his eyes were large and black. He had commanded fleets of ships. He had taken planets. He had never met a species that fought like the humans were fighting. His second officer, Vex, came to stand beside him. Vex was younger, maybe 30 cycles old. In human years, that would be about 25. Vex had big thoughts inside a young mind and had always liked him for that reason. They are not broken, Vex said quietly. We thought they were weak. We thought their ship was easy to take. We were wrong. No, said. His voice was hard and cold like his people's world. They will fail. They have no power, no weapons. In the next hour they will give up or they will die. Nothing else will happen. But did not believe what he was saying. He could feel it in the way his hearts beat faster. Something was wrong with his understanding of the situation. The humans tried something new. The next attack came with force and thinking. They moved through their ship in ways that made no sense to strategy. They did not hold the main corridor. They did not try to keep soldiers from boarding. Instead, they moved like water, moving around obstacles instead of fighting them. In the second section of the human ship, they found a trapped room with no way out. The humans had let them walk into it. The room was small and dark. The air was thick with steam that burned the eyes of they could not see. They could not breathe well. And then the humans closed the door and the temperature began to change. Up and down, hot and cold, making the sick. Soldiers came back to the boarding corridor, and their eyes showed fear. They are not trying to win, Vex said. He was watching the data that came from the border sensors. Look at this. They could have killed these soldiers. They had the power to do it. They did not. They just made them leave. Studied the readings. It was true. The humans had created traps that would hurt but not kill. Every weapon they made was designed to force them back, not to end their lives. They will make a mistake, said, but his voice was not so hard now. Time moved on. 2 hours passed. The battle became a dance of moves and countermoves. The humans would defend a position. They would attack. The humans would move to a new position. They would follow. But with every attack, with every exchange, the pattern became clear. The humans were not trying to win. They were trying to survive. And they were doing it with creativity and thought instead of weapons and numbers. Made a decision that surprised even him. He called for a ceasefire. His officers looked at him like he had gone crazy. No, said firmly. Send the message. We will stop the attack. We will talk. In the human control room, Jake received the message. For the first time in 3 hours, the sound of weapons and alarms went silent. The quiet was louder than the noise had been. Is it a trick? David asked. Maybe, Jake said, but we are going to find out anyway. Jake put on a pressure suit. The suit was gray and white, with the human flag on the shoulder. He had worn this suit in 3 different star systems. He had stood on 3 different worlds. Now he was going to walk into a ship full of aliens who had just tried to kill him and his crew. The corridor between the ships was a tunnel of metal and darkness. Jake walked through it alone. Behind him, through the cameras, his crew could see everything. In front of him, aliens waited. The meeting room was cold. The liked cold places was there, and Vex and 3 other officers. They were all very tall. They all looked down at Jake from a height that was clear and hard to miss. I am Commander Jake Harrison, Jake said. His voice was steady. I want to know why you attacked us. Moved forward. He was so large that Jake had to tilt his head back to see his eyes. But Jake did not move back. He stood still. We wanted your ship, said simply. Your technology is different. We wanted to study it. We thought you would be easy to take. That is what we thought. And now, Jake asked. Was quiet for a long time. The commander looked at Jake with those large black eyes. He looked at this small human who had fought with nothing but creativity and will. He looked at a being that his people had believed was weak and primitive. Now I do not know what you are, said slowly. My soldiers say you could have killed them, but you did not. My ship sensors show that every weapon you made was designed to push them back, not to destroy them. An enemy that could kill but chooses not to kill is not weak. An enemy that thinks is more dangerous than an enemy that has big weapons. Jake looked at the commander. He saw in his face the moment when understanding began to grow. He saw the moment when a proud being started to understand that pride could be wrong. We do not want war, Jake said. We want to live. We want to go home. And we want the beings we meet to know that we are worth talking to instead of fighting with. Vex made a sound. It was not a word that humans could speak, but it meant something like agreement. He stepped forward and looked at. There is wisdom in what the human says, Vex said. This is not a ship to take. This is a ship to learn from. Looked at his young officer. Then he looked at Jake again. His large body seemed to relax, as if he had been holding all his strength for a very long time. "We will talk," said. "No more weapons, no more fighting. We will talk and we will see if the stars are big enough for humans and to share." Jake felt something let go inside his chest. They had survived. But more than that, they had done something harder than survival. They had turned an enemy into something else. Not a friend yet, but not an enemy anymore. It was a beginning. The medical bay became a place of healing for both humans and, worked through the night, moving from one bed to another. The human soldiers were hurt, but they would heal. They had wounds from the cold and the traps, but their bodies were strong. Noticed something interesting as she worked. They healed very fast. A cut that would take a human 2 weeks to recover from would be gone in 3 days for a, but they did not understand pain the way humans did. When asked them about their injuries, they seemed surprised that she cared about how they felt. Came to the medical bay to check on his soldiers. He saw tending to both human and wounds with equal care. He watched her inject pain medicine into a soldier's arm, and he watched the surprise on his face. "Why do you do this?" asked her. "Your enemy is hurt, you could let them suffer." Did not stop her work. She was putting a clean bandage on a human officer's shoulder. "Because they are hurt," she said. "That is reason enough. Pain is pain. It does not matter what species feels it." Stood very still. In all his years of war and command, no one had ever explained mercy to him in such a simple way. The next day, Jake and spent 6 hours together in the conference room. They talked about everything. Jake told about Earth. He explained that humans came from a planet that was dangerous. The weather could kill you. The animals could kill you. The Earth itself could move and destroy cities. Disease could take your life in days. "Humans learned to survive," Jake said, "because we had to. There was no choice. Either we learned to work together and think faster than our problems, or we died." Listened carefully. His large eyes never left Jake's face. When Jake finished talking about Earth, talked about Prime, he talked about a planet that was comfortable and safe. He talked about a people who had grown strong and thought they did not need to learn new things. "Maybe," said slowly, "maybe strength is not what we thought it was." Maya came to the conference room with data about the ship's damage. Chris had been working with engineers to see if they could fix the systems together. What they found was surprising. Technology was different, but it was not better. It was just different. Each species had things the other did not understand. When Chris and the engineers sat down together, something magic happened. They started to solve problems that neither species could solve alone. A cooling system that was broken in the ship could be fixed using a human method. A power system that human engineers did not understand became simple when engineers explained it. "It is like two different ways of thinking," Chris told Jake. "They build things strong and big. We build things smart and small. Together, we could build something amazing." Vex came to Jake with a request. He wanted to see the human ship in detail. He wanted to understand how humans thought about building and creating. Jake agreed, and Vex spent 2 days walking through every part of the human exploration ship. He looked at every tool, every system, every small invention that humans had created to solve problems in space. On the second day, Vex came to find Jake. His face showed something like excitement, but faces were not easy to read. "I see it now," Vex said. "I see why I was wrong. Your ship is not weak. It is the opposite of weak. Your ship is strong because it uses the least amount of resources to do the most things. It is beautiful in a way that I did not know technology could be." Jake smiled. "On Earth, we call that efficiency. We had to learn to do more with less. It became part of how we think." That night, a message came from the High Council. Opened it in the presence of Jake and his officers. As read, his face changed. The large commander stood up and his movements were angry. "They are ordering me to destroy your ship," said. "They say my behavior brings shame to the people. They say I should have finished the battle." The human crew did not move. They had been through enough to know that panic was a useless thing. They waited for what would do. Looked at Jake. For a long time there was only silence in the room. Then walked to the communication system. He started to record a message. His voice was loud and clear and full of power. High Council of the Trade Coalition said, "I am Commander. I am sending you a report of a new species that has entered the known galaxy. They are called humans. They came to us in peace. We attacked them. They defended themselves with creativity and strength that we did not know existed. They could have destroyed my soldiers. They did not. They could have refused to heal my wounded. They did not." Paused. He seemed to be choosing his words with care. "I have learned that the universe is larger than what we thought. These humans are not weak. They are different. They are strong in ways that our weapons cannot measure. I am ordering you to stand down the backup fleet. I am ordering you to prepare for peaceful contact with the human species. And if you do not like my choices, then I will give you my resignation." Stopped the recording and sent it. He turned back to Jake. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now," said, "we wait, but I will not change what I have said. I have learned the truth. The truth is worth my life even if my people do not believe it yet." 3 hours passed. Then the High Council responded. They did not order an attack. They did not accept resignation. Instead, they sent a message saying they would listen. They would hear what had learned. They would consider peaceful contact. It was not a victory in the way people understood victory, but it was something more important. It was the moment when one being could change the thinking of an entire people. Vex stood next to and looked at Jake. "This is how change begins," Vex said. "Not with weapons, with courage." Jake nodded. He understood now that the battle had never been about weapons at all. It had been about showing that humanity was worth knowing, worth understanding, worth talking to instead of destroying. The hard part was done. Now came the part that was harder. Now came the part where they had to prove every day that humans were worth the trust that Vex had given them. The Galactic Council chamber was big and cold and made to impress. The room was round, and seats rose up in circles from a central floor. Representatives from 23 alien species sat in these seats. All of them were looking down at the center where Jake Harrison and stood together. This was the moment that would decide everything. The moment where humanity would be introduced to the galaxy as equals or as a curiosity or as something that the other species would fear. Jake had prepared for this for 2 weeks. He had worked with to understand galactic politics. He had learned the names of the council members and the history of their species. He had learned what each one wanted and what each one feared. But no amount of preparation could make this less scary. Jake was one human standing in a room with aliens from across the galaxy. Most of them did not know his name. Most of them did not care about humans at all. The council leader was a being called, was very old and very large. His species had been in space for 10,000 years. He looked at Jake with eyes that showed nothing. "We have heard a report," said, his voice like stone moving. "A report that Commander attacked a human exploration vessel. A report that the humans turned the attack to their advantage. A report that has decided to form an alliance with this new species instead of reporting the failure to his superiors." The council became loud with voices. Some of them sounded angry, some sounded curious. Moved forward. He was not worried about the council. He had made his choice. "Yes," said, "I attacked humans because I believed they were weak. I was wrong. I am telling you that you are wrong too. Humanity is not a species you can ignore. Humanity is a species you need to understand." A council member from a reptilian species raised her hand. "This sounds like the human has tricked you. This sounds like they used words and lies to change your mind." Jake stepped forward. "No words tricked anyone," he said. His voice was small compared to the commander's, but it was clear and steady. "Actions did the tricking. I will tell you what happened." Jake told the story of the ambush. He did not leave anything out. He told about the cold traps and the electromagnetic pulse. He told about the soldiers who did not die because humans chose not to kill them. He told about his willingness to change his mind. "You see," Jake said, "we did not win because we had the best weapons. We do not have the best weapons. We won because we could think. We won because we could see the problem and find a new answer. We won because we valued the lives of our enemy enough to find another way than killing." A small council member from a species that looked like insects made a sound that showed doubt. Why should the galaxy care about any of this? Why should we trust that this human species is anything but a threat? Jake took a breath. He was about to say something that he had been thinking about for 2 weeks. "Because," Jake said, "on my world, we survived the worst conditions that any planet could put us through. We survived because we learned to work together. We learned to share. We learned that we were stronger when we helped each other than when we fought each other. If the galaxy needs anything right now, it needs to learn that lesson too." The council became very quiet. In that quiet, Jake could hear his own heartbeat. He could feel the weight of every eye looking at him. Then Vex stood up. He was the only officer who had not returned to his people's territory. He had chosen to stay and work with humans. "I am a young officer," Vex said. "I do not have the wisdom of age like many of you do, but I have seen something important. I have seen that humans are different in a way that I do not have words for yet. They think about problems instead of destroying problems. They care about life even when they are losing a battle. They offer friendship to someone who tried to kill them. These are not the signs of weakness. These are the signs of something new in the galaxy." One by one, council members began to speak. Some were angry, some were curious, but none of them voted to attack humanity. None of them voted to reject the alliance that had proposed. Instead, the council voted to create a new arrangement. Humanity would be considered a candidate species for the Galactic Council. Humans would have ambassadors and rights and protection under galactic law. In return, humans would agree to follow the rules of the galaxy and not attack without cause. It was not perfect. It was not what Jake had hoped for, but it was something. It was recognition. It was being seen as equal. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new human ship. This ship was bigger and faster than the first one. It was built with parts made by both human engineers and engineers. It was a ship that showed what two species could make together when they worked as one. Vex stood next to Jake. The young officer had asked to be part of a human team for 1 year. He wanted to learn how humans thought. He wanted to understand the mystery of human strength that was not made of weapons. "We are getting ready to go home," Vex said. "Back to Earth. You must be excited." Jake looked at the stars ahead. Earth was out there somewhere in the darkness. His family was waiting. His world was waiting. "Yes," Jake said, "but I am also thinking about what comes after. I am thinking about all the other species out there that do not know what humans are. I am thinking about all the chances we have to build something new, something better." "That is the human way," Vex said. "To always think about what comes next, to always believe that things can be better than they are." The ship jumped into space, and the stars became lines of light. Behind them, the 442 system grew smaller. Ahead of them, the galaxy waited. It was a galaxy that was starting to understand that humanity was more than a primitive species from a dangerous world. Humanity was a people who had learned to survive by thinking and caring and choosing mercy when they could have chosen destruction. Jake thought about who was still working to change the minds of his people. He thought about Vex, who had chosen to stay and learn instead of return to the safety of his own species. He thought about and Chris and Maya and all the others who had turned an attack into a friendship. The greatest victory was not won by weapons. It was won by being the kind of people that others wanted to learn from. It was won by showing the galaxy that humans were worth knowing. As the ship moved faster and faster toward home, Jake sat in his command chair and thought about the future. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. The work of showing the galaxy who humans really were. The work of building something that had never existed before. A galaxy where different species could work together. A galaxy where strength was not measured by weapons but by wisdom and courage and the willingness to choose peace. It was a dream that had started in the dark of space, when a small human ship had faced an enemy and found a way to make them understand instead of making them disappear. It was a dream that would take many years to build, but it had started, and that made all the difference.